All right. Well, we are a couple days away from free agency officially kicking off. Looking forward to that, Mark. As always, we've got a lot coming up, and we'll talk about that later. But some news that has been percolating throughout the league over the last maybe month or so. We're not able to get to every topic on every show. One of those that stood out to me, and it's kind of gained some steam as of late, is did you hear about the chain gang situation and the
Yeah. They want to do
optical
the
tracking?
that thing
Yeah.
that they do in tennis.
Yes, it's very fascinating. And this has been something that has been talked about for a long time. And people think that it's a very antiquated system to begin with, that a chain gang is used to mark it down in distance and determine whether a team actually got the first down or not. Numerous times every week, you run into situations, crucial situations in a game where, a crew has to make that, potentially game defining call. And it's up to, at the end of the day, the eye of the referee and the chain gang to get their placements right. Well, the league has been testing optical tracking. They tested it last season and at the Super Bowl. Of course, they didn't rely on it. It was a total secondary thing that they were just seeing how it would play out. Likely not ready to roll out yet, per multiple reports. But this is something clearly in the works, and they're moving towards basically eventually getting rid of the chain gang entirely. So personally, I welcome the change, but I know there's going to be a lot of people, as we've seen in baseball circles over the years, where they're very tied to the original traditions of the game, even if it's something as uh, nonsensical as having humans determine where the ball fell and things like that.
Personally, I say it can go to hell. I love there's nothing better than that. What was that Monday night game where Gene Steratore came out with the cue card and
Yeah,
literally like the index card? That the humans are a part of the human game, right? Like, and it's the same thing with umpires. I think it's Barstool Big Cat who says it all the time, and I totally agree with him. Like, if you get rid of umps, what do we have left to like argue about? Like, no, we got screwed. Like, we got screwed. And yeah, people get mad for a day or two, but then it dies out and it goes on. I just like the changes. I like that this billion-dollar industry has these old, fat, retired guys come on out with the chains, and you know that moment when you're watching them and you're waiting, and they pull it, and the nose of the football is just past it, and your team erupts if they get a stop, or they erupt if they get a first down. That momentum that gets built from that. I'm very pro leaving it as it is. I would have to really see how it looks, but I like human beings in the human game. Does that make sense? It's just
it
the
makes
more
sense. I
the
I
more
have a
we
different
add
thought
robot
on this.
technology to things, like I like the cool new camera angles. I like the overhead thing where you got like that thing that was following Bijan Robinson all year long. That's
Yeah.
awesome. But that does from the humanity of the game still. And I think for me, it's also like I think it's a societal pushback. I think there's too much technology involved in everything nowadays. Like it just is. So that's even though I'm only 33 and welcome to the 33 club, it's me just putting my foot down, be like, no, like sometimes less technology is more.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree with the move in this particular instance of the refereeing of the game. I don't think that they'll ever get to a point where at least in our lifetime, where referees will become completely obsolete and they just won't exist in the game. So I think there's always going to hopefully be an element of human touch on the game and how it's ruled and called. So from that aspect, like I think I'm tied to that tradition of the game in that sense, to where I want to see it evolve in some minor tweaks and areas. If it got to the point where they were, we were talking about completely getting rid of refs, then I'd have to revisit that conversation
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah. I'd be
reevaluate.
very
But
anti that.
I liken this to making a minor change in baseball to not getting rid of the ump, but using AI to determine a check swing versus the third base coach or the third
Yeah.
base ump.
I
And so if we're just talking about just the chain gang and finding out, did they cross the plane, did they get the first down using the chip in the ball and things like that, i'm I, I'm someone that's very much tied to, like, okay, what is it, true or is it not true? Like, I don't really care about the how you sell it. I care about, did they actually get the first down or did they not? I don't
Yeah.
care if it looked this way or, so I think the more accurate you could be with that, I'm on board with it.
I don't hate. I mean, listen, it's not the worst thing in the world. I just am one of those people that are like, I hate the slippery slope, man. I get so worried about the slippery slope.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's a lot of things like in politics and life in general, I get worried about with the slippery slope. And yeah, there's just something so funny and awesome about those moments too, when you're watching the replays, you're going, I think it's close. Like, I don't know. Like, either way, it goes either way. Put the chains out there, and then it's that fun moment in the game. But maybe there'll still be some drama with the chip and the eagle eye thing. Who knows? And so personally, we'll see. I'd like to see it tested in preseason. Like, you just let us see it in preseason, and then when we as fans can react to it, and then we'll have a better gauge on whether we actually like it or not.
Yeah, we're probably a year or two away from any serious discussions on it being rolled out, fully. So, I welcome the, initial testing period, and preseason would be a perfect, grounds for that to be tested out. But we are here to talk about some locks for the 2024 NFL season. Yes, you heard that right. We haven't even gotten into free agency or the draft, but we are looking ahead to the fall and excited to see kind of our initial thoughts here before the league year gets underway on what is a lock for this upcoming season. All right, so Mark, you brought this idea to me, 3 guarantees for the 2024 NFL season. It's kind of probably a little bit of a merging of our bold take segment that we do before the season, but obviously this is more something that we really, feel strongly about, and something that we're planting the flag early so that we can't, divert from this come, free agency and summer and all of that stuff.
My thought was with this is the idea is it's not necessarily a bold take, and the bold takes are usually like what we like to do is like, hey, here's something that's going against what the mainstream is telling you. This is more like, here is what the mainstream should tell you, and we support. Like, this is a lock. This thing should happen. I would put $50 a big bet of for me on each one of these things happening. If I could find the odds on them to get them, like today, I feel that strongly about it. So that's kind of where this idea came from before free agency hit, before the draft. Where are we at as far as we feel confident? No matter what happens during those periods, these 3 things should not be affected by that.
Yeah, definitely. So I will let you kick things off with your first submission, and then I'll give mine, and we'll go back and forth.
Okay, so I'm starting at my number 3, and I'm going to work up to my number 1. My number 1 is I bet my life and soul on it, right? But my number 3 is, I believe, 3+. So minimum 3, but 3+ rookie quarterbacks will start week 1. So, and I say that I feel confident in feeling that way because of look how many openings there are. In a traditional offseason year 2, you just have more movement from the veteran quarterbacks. We're talking about maybe Russell Wilson finding a job. The market, they keep saying right now, is low for Justin Fields. But I feel strongly that Washington, if Chicago drafts Caleb Williams, and, with the New England Patriots alone, you could have your 3 starters right there, 1, 2, and 3 in the draft. And all 3 of those guys, I think, would start week 1. But then you look at teams like Denver. It feels more and more evident every day that Denver is going to start maybe a rookie quarterback. Atlanta, even if they sign a Russell Wilson, maybe they draft a rookie and he beats out Russ, or something like that happens. So I feel confident that week 1, 2024 season, you're going to have 3+ rookie quarterbacks starting in the NFL.
Do you care to take a gander, or take a shot at who those 3 will be?
So Caleb Williams is going to start wherever he is. And I think so that's 1. Washington is going to start a rookie quarterback, whoever they draft. I feel confident that's 2, because they just want that fresh start. And then I think if there's a rookie in Denver, I would 100% think that rookie is going to start.
Okay.
Plus, I do think that if a Michael Penix Jr. somewhere like that drops to a Seattle, I think he could absolutely come into training camp with the idea of, well, we can start Geno, but then by like week 2 of the preseason, like, no, just start him. He's better. Like he's capable of starting. So those are a couple scenarios, I think. But again, if the Bears draft Caleb Williams and then the Commanders and the Patriots draft rookie QBs, all three of those, I feel like all three of those are locks to start, especially if they're healthy and make it, just because of where those organizations are at with just kind of needing that fresh start, face the franchise, let's go, reset, rebuild, retool. So I feel really confident we're going to have 3+ rookie starters week 1.
All right, I want you to bear with me on my number 3 here, because
it
could very easily be interpreted as a bold take, but I'm going to explain why I don't think it's that bold of a take and why it is something that I would, put a lot of money on. And it's something I have in the past offered as a bold take, or at least a variation of this I have, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. But mine is that no coach will be fired during the season in 2024. And my reasoning for this is we have a very unique climate in the NFL right now in terms of the coaching staffs. It's changed a lot, even in just the last 3 years. There's always a turnover, about 6 teams every year, 6 to 8 teams that are getting new coaches and things like that. But right now, the way that the quarterback situation is for most teams and the head coaches for the others, or sometimes those overlap, we're in a spot right now where most of the coaches we have questions about. I'll explain the 2 outliers that worry me about this thing. There's 2 I have that I'm a little bit worried about that would break this. You think about some of the fringe options, like, oh, but what about Brian Daboll or Robert Saleh? To me, like, a lot of these situations that we're talking about are situations that to me wouldn't make much sense. In Daboll's case, he's already gone through the slog and the real tough times, to where what could go wrong in New York that this year that they'd be like, oh, we got to get Brian Daboll out.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, he's been saddled with Daniel Jones, and the team has basically been gutted at this point, and they had a really rough year last year. They brought him back. Robert Saleh, they're doing this Aaron Rodgers experiment right now. He's the veteran quarterback. It would make no sense to just get rid of the head coach mid-season when you're going to have Aaron Rodgers for next year and at the most the year after that. That would be a bizarre situation to me. So even some of those weird situations, I don't think it would make much sense or plausible to see the team getting rid of their head coaches. And then I think of like the Mike McCarthy's in Dallas. I don't see Dallas being bad enough to where they would fire the guy in the middle of the season. They'd wait till the end of the season. And then really just the landscape across the rest of the league, Mark, is we have a lot of rookie head coaches.
Yeah, a lot of new
second-year head coaches. And for a lot of those teams, it's just a situation where they're either starting over with a brand new quarterback, in which those coaches are almost guaranteed to get that year to work with those rookie quarterbacks, or Antonio Pierce, for instance, where he was an interim head coach, and maybe he doesn't get a rookie quarterback this year, but he's clearly got an owner that wants to get this thing right, and he's not going to make a rash decision to get rid of Antonio Pierce, because if they do poorly, that was kind of expected in the first place without much of at the quarterback position. So when I just think of all of these situations across the league, it seems harder and harder for me to find a scenario where a head coach gets fired mid-season. But the 2 that worry me the most are Dennis Allen in New Orleans. I am concerned about that, because
that could get ugly.
That should be winning. And then Matt Eberflus, of course, because the only thing is, it depends what the Bears do. If they get Caleb Williams, maybe Matt Eberflus's leash gets a little bit longer. But if the
Bears also don't fire people within season.
Right.
It's just nothing that they do. So you have a little cushion there.
Yeah. David Tepper certainly is the wild card here with Dave Canales there in Carolina.
But you can't do it. He's
Could they possibly fire a coach mid-season for 3 years in a row? It's certainly possible, but one that I'm not willing to
I would throw this name at you. I'm going to push back just slightly in the sense that I I wouldn't put money on that. I agree with you. I agree with
Okay.
your thinking. I really agree with your
Well, hey,
thinking.
scared money don't make money. All right.
True. Very true.
Yes.
I agree. You'd get great odds on that. I agree with your thinking. Like, it makes a lot of sense. You have a lot of new faces and places and a lot of people that are in the win now modes, but they have things that would help them at least make it through the season. What I thought you were going to say is the two things that scare you is Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick. They're out there. They're in waiting. And
Yeah.
you could see a team getting eager to be like, I just want to be the first one to latch on to Mike Vrabel. A team like in Arizona, if they get off to a really poor start and Gannon, struggles early, especially with his defense, like that could be a spot where I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe it like midway through the second year, they're just like, it's not working. Kyler's playing good, but he's just not it. We need a new leader. That could be something. But again, you're right. If you look at the landscape, Dennis Allen's probably the sitting duck, as far as if things fall apart, I'd worry about that bet for you.
Like, I would be surprised if Robert Saleh gets fired at the end of next season. But
Yeah, I agree.
Mid-season with Aaron,
Yeah, I agree.
like who you're gonna make Nat Hackett your
Yeah.
head coach for Aaron? I mean, I don't know. That would just be a situation I don't see like what the point is.
Totally.
But yeah.
All right, for my number 2, this is a simple one. I feel really confident in it, and I would take the money and the odds on it now. The Minnesota Vikings will finish 4th in the NFC North. I listen, I like Minnesota. I like where they're going. I like their head coach. But Chicago has already gotten better in just the sense that they've added Jalen Johnson back. Chicago has already gotten better in the sense that no matter what they do with the number 1 overall draft pick, like it is a huge gain for them versus whatever Minnesota does. Even if they re-sign Kirk Cousins, he's coming off the Achilles. How good will he be? If they go with a rookie quarterback, it's a lot of pressure on that rookie to come in and play and make Justin Jefferson happy. And Jordan
they might lose Danielle Hunter, and they already have a bad defense.
They don't have their maybe elite pass rusher. They don't have a running back for a young quarterback to lean on. Minnesota's a good team, and they could be a 7-win team, 8-win team again, but still finish last in the division. So maybe the Bears are tied with them as an 8-win team, but the Bears win the 2 head-to-head games or something like that, and it's close. But I feel confident that Green Bay's got a great young roster that's getting better, and Detroit is probably the second best roster in the NFC, and especially with the coach and culture-wise right now. So I feel confident saying Minnesota is going to be 4th in the division. They could still be a really good team. I'm not saying Minnesota's going to win 3 games, but I think at their peak, Minnesota is a slightly better version of what they were this year, which was a 7-win team. So right now, unless they make some really drastic big offseason moves, I feel confident that Minnesota, even with a rookie quarterback, will be like, all right, no pressure, go win 7 games again, and let's see if you could build something here. They're not in this compete for a wild card, win the division mode right now.
Yeah, I think they're in a tough situation. The defense has been bad for a couple years. It's been getting worse. And yeah, if they lose Danielle Hunter, then all of a sudden they got bigger problems to address on that side of the ball. And offensively, we just don't know what we haven't seen Kirk Cousins, rebound from this series of an injury at this stage of his career. And to your point, offensive line's shaky. And the run game is a big question mark. So they've got weapons, no doubt. I mean, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and Hawkinson, that's a great trio of weapons for Kirk. And he's a good quarterback. But yeah, there's a lot of question marks there. And I would feel more comfortable, with those 3 other teams in the NFC North going into next year. So I agree there. Obviously, the one that, the betting odds probably weren't in my favor, even if I think they should have been. With that first submission. My next one is one I really feel that this should be a slam dunk. And it may not seem that way right off the top, but it's Aaron Rodgers will not play a full 17 games this upcoming season. Age, coming off of a brutal Achilles injury, the worst offensive line in the league, and tons of question marks around this offense, the team in general, everything. And with Rodgers still more mobile for a 39-year-old quarterback than most. But with that Achilles injury, I mean, he's going to be a sitting duck for a lot of this year. And how, like, am I confident that Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to completely change the way he plays football and get the football out of his hands quicker than any quarterback in the league? I'm not so sure. And I think that's what's going to be needed to be able to play. I mean, we saw Tom, make historic strides on that front when he was with Tampa and even at the end in New England, getting the ball out quick to make up for, the lack of offensive line. That's just really not how Aaron Rodgers operates or works. And so I see him holding on the ball a lot and just kind of showing it to the team, showing it to the league. Look what I have to deal with. I keep getting hit. One of those hits is all it takes for the guy to miss a game or two. I'm not saying he's going to go down with a season-ending injury, but I could see him having, bumps and bruises to where he misses a game here, a game there, and ends up playing 14 of the 17 games.
I think that's a great pick. I also, you didn't even mention, I think the biggest elephant in the room there besides the offensive line is that MetLife turf. I mean, you got to play 8 games
true.
in MetLife. It is obviously known as the worst turf, besides FedEx Field, but that's real grass. But I mean, like, probably the worst turf field in the NFL. Every single player hates it, despises it. He does extend plays. He's also got like the most fragile collarbones in the world. Like, he's missed two portions of 2 different seasons because of broken collarbones. And I think that's another thing that people forget with Aaron Rodgers. So yeah, I think that's a great pick there. And I agree with it 100%. The number one for me is easy, and it's one that I'm just going to bet every year, no matter what, until something drastically changes. The Kansas City Chiefs will win the AFC West. They've won it 8 years in a row. Pat Mahomes is almost unbeatable in division. He owns his division. It is so Brady-esque versus the AFC East. Even though I love the Chargers and they're getting way better, I think the Raiders have a lot of soul-searching and things to work on before that offense gets better. And I know the Raiders, they caught the Chiefs. And I know the Broncos, they beat the Chiefs this past year too. But I think the Broncos and the Raiders, in a weird way, are maybe taking neutral steps. I don't see their arrows pointing up right now. I see them like, okay, kind of holding on to whatever we got here while this is kind of weird reset year before we can actually start going arrow up. Unless the Raiders make a really big, drastic move to go get a Drake May, get a Caleb Williams, something like that. But even then, there's going to be a lot of holes. Yeah, a lot of holes in that roster for them year one. And I think those are going to be Mahomes also. Hey, we lost these guys last year. I think you're going to see an improved Chiefs team. I really do. They already got Drew Tranquil back. I think they'll get Chris Jones back. They have draft capital. I think you're going to see them be aggressive for a wide receiver in the trade, in the draft. And I think this is going to be one of those years where we regret it. We keep saying, man, oh man, they should have got him last year because now they're even better. It's going to be Mahomes back to MVP type, regular season Mahomes type of guy. And that's not good for the AFC West. They're going to win the AFC West. Lock it up.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly, and I'll stay in the AFC West because I wasn't strong enough to pick the Chargers to win the division because I believe that the Chiefs will win it along there with you. But I believe that the Chargers will certainly make the NFL playoffs. We talk every year, and Colin Cowherd's been a big drives this home every year, how there's about 5 teams that make the playoffs one year that didn't the previous. The Chargers are the easiest pick in the world to be one of those teams that didn't make it last year, will make it this year. Jim Harbaugh, the biggest driving factor for that, of course. Justin Herbert, a healthy receiver core going into the year, and we'll see what they do in the draft, but I imagine that they'll get another receiver to just help buffer their inevitable receiver injury that they apparently get every single year. And just the arrows pointing up for the Chargers. So feel very confident that they'll make the playoffs. Maybe take advantage of the Raiders and Denver in division that are becoming maybe a little bit weaker or just stagnant, whereas the Chargers can kind of rise to the occasion there. So in division, they have a little bit weaker competition than some others in the AFC North or, NFC or AFC East, things like that. So the door is certainly open for LA to get there, and I think they're going to get there fast because that's just how Jim Harbaugh rolls.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was one of my honorable mentions. I love the Chargers making the playoffs, and I can't wait to see what the rest of their offseason looks like. Really quickly, I have a couple honorable mentions. I'll just throw them out there and see what you think on them. My first one was, I didn't know how to qualify this, but if Joe Burrow plays 15 plus games, 14 plus games, I love the Bengals back in the playoffs. This was a 9-8 team with a really solid defense. And I think that Joe Burrow kind of coming back, reminding everyone who he is, why he's that dude, healthy offseason now. I think that arrow points up, you bring T. Higgins back. Thoughts on that? Am I crazy there?
Yeah, no, I'm totally on board. I mean,
they feel like a playoff
9-8 with Jake Browning leading the way for several of those games.
And then the other one is in the AFC North as well. I don't think the Cleveland Browns hit 11 games again. I think you take the under. They're going to win less games. I don't know if it's going to be a significant drop off, but I don't think Cleveland's getting to 11 games again. Part of that is I think the Bengals should be better if Burrow's healthy. I don't think the Ravens are going anywhere. I'm so excited to see what the Ravens do in the offseason. And I think your Pittsburgh Steelers, depending on what they do with the quarterback and the moves they make, are going to still be a really, really tough out. And that division eats itself alive. And Cleveland's going to have a harder schedule now because they were a playoff team. And I think that's going to come back to bite them a little bit. I just still don't believe in Deshaun.
Yeah, no, Deshaun is one of those situations where we got to say, especially at this point, we'll believe it when we see it type of deal. You can't keep going on the train of like waiting for it to happen and every year, saying it's going to happen. And then after a certain point, I mean, it's kind of how I had to deal with things with Carson Wentz. I think I went like 2 straight years of being like, no, he's going to get back to the MVP level. And you have to accept it at a certain point and just say, you know what, I'm tabling that. And if it happens, if he gets there, then we'll be able to say, okay, Deshaun Watson's back. But Deshaun Watson's not getting any younger. I mean, we're talking about what is he? Is he 29?
He'll be 29. 30. Yeah, 28, 29.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about leaving your prime, and you haven't even done much, within your prime at this point. And
it's been so long since we saw him in that Chiefs playoff game where they went up 21-0 and he was electric, and then they fell apart and the Chiefs came back and won that game. Remember, he's in the same draft class as Mitch and Mahomes, and those guys aren't young anymore. Like, they're just not. Like, that is no longer like, oh, they're young guys. They are established veterans in the heart of their prime right now. I know there are guys like Brady who played to 40, but you got to remember that is the outlier. It's just the outlier. In a really good career that lasts like a long time, you're a 12, 13-year guy, and they're already in year 8, 9, like coming on up. So time is running out for Deshaun 100%.
I mean, would you agree this is the year for Deshaun?
Yeah, because
you can't, another injury, you can't.
If he's bad this year, or he's not it, then Cleveland has to. They don't have to cut him like the Browns did with Russ, but then you draft a quarterback. Like you look at Deshaun and you say, we're going to probably draft a guy in the second round or late first, something like that, and you say, we need to bring someone in here to have the future going. Someone to sit behind him for a year, and you put that pressure on him and you say, listen, we're paying you no matter what. So we gotta cover our asses. If he's bad or if he gets injured this year again, absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean, with the Russell situation, it's $85 million dead cap. With Deshaun's, it would be in the neighborhood of, I would just guess, around 130 to 140. I just can't. Yeah, that's what happens when you guarantee $230 million to a guy. So, yeah, no, I agree with all of those, and I think that's a good list to launch us into the 2024 season down the road. But of course, with free agency just around the corner, really excited to see what these teams do. We've got a great episode coming for you all next Monday. Special guest coming on the show with some NFL experience, so really looking forward to talking with him, picking his brain. Especially as we look into the free agency period. He's got a lot of insights into that. And then we'll also talk about the aforementioned Russell Wilson deal with him being cut. being rumored to be doing interviews with the Steelers and the Giants. And also, we'll talk about your Jalen Johnson getting inked to a big time deal with the Chicago Bears. So we'll discuss all of that next week. But we will leave you with that here for this week and get ready for the free agency period to open up next week, because once it does, the floodgates are open and we are officially off and running big time. All right. We'll see you then.